All right, this is a house I did back in 2001, 2002, something like that. It's the first 18 S.E.E.R unit. There it is, XL18. It's the first one that went out of our warehouse here in Greenville. So it was a big deal back then. I'm not sure, we'll look at the date on the sticker. But we've had no trouble out of it all these years, and is tripping the breaker. So let's go see why. Let's get over here and see if we can see the sticker on it. Can't remember exactly when the date was, but this was the first one that went out of. Where is the sticker? So there's the other one, which is the XL 1400. Let's see here. Oh Lord. These load control idiots drilled right through our sticker. So this was back in 2000. But it's tripping the breaker. Let's open it up and find out why. Okay. So I wonder if there's a spine fin coil even left under there. Boy, look at that. This thing has not been touched. Since we put it in. In 2000. No problems out of it at all. Tell you what, we're fixing to see what the problem was, but good Lord, look at that. So this is the 2 compressor model, and it's got 2 contactors. Now I see a pretty bad puffed up capacitor there, but I don't see anything that should be tripping the breaker. So I'm thinking we have probably lost a compressor here, which means we're going to figure out which one it is, and hopefully it's not both of them, so we can leave them some air on one stage or another. But let's look a little further before we make that decision. Oh, I heard that, and I know where that came from, and there is no contactor pushed in. Like I say, it was one of the first ones. It's never had a component replaced. So let's get the blade off so it's out of our way to get in here and find out what shorted. So this rubber cap really does its job, because you can see it's not rusted. So we loosen the set screws, it should come right out. It's like the Allens. So that comes right off. One little rubber cap saves you a bunch of trouble. This thing has not been touched in 20 years and it didn't rust up. That's good. All right, let's find what is immediately tripping the breaker. Somewhere we're going to find a wire fried and burned and causing that trouble, and I just would not doubt it to be a crankcase heater if it has those, and I think it does. Would not doubt it to be one of those, or one of the compressors is gone. Let's open this stuff up and look. Looks like that might be a problem. Let's unhook the crankcase heaters and see if the breaker will stay on then. All right, dadgummit, of course I got something tagged out of it. So this purple wire the other. Obviously, see, this breaks a leg to these crankcase heaters. So that, of course, this is not a heat pump. There'd be no reason for a defrost sensor. So that sensor there is to keep you from powering up the crankcase heaters when it's not needed. So I'm going to say the head pressure line that it's hooked to, when you get a certain amount of heat to that, it will open and stop you from powering the crankcase heaters. This was an 18 S.E.E.R back in its day, and they were doing absolutely every single little thing they could to try to squeeze efficiency out, and not burning the crankcase heaters when not necessary was obviously one of those things. So that's why we have that sensor and these purple wires tagged in along with these crankcase heaters. So now I understand it. But we found the melted wire down there where it was just pulled tight against the door to the compressor there, or the bottom of the, right where the wires are in that compressor. So I'm convinced that that was what was blowing the breaker. So I have hooked the compressors back up. Everything is connected except for these crankcase heaters and the sensor. And in this climate, honestly, we just don't need them ever. So not going to worry about repairing those. It's a 20-year-old unit. It's lived a good life. So if we can get it to start up and both compressors do work and the blower works, then we're going to clean this thing out. Get that coil to where you can see it again and fire it up and see what we got. All right. So I have not mounted this capacitor yet. It's only using the 35 part of it. I don't have a straight 35. So I'm just going to let this hang and make sure everything fires up and runs. And if it does, we'll mount it. This was for a lot fatter capacitor, the factory one. So if everything does okay, we'll mount the capacitor, flush this thing out, and start it up and see what happens. Here comes the moment of truth. I hope it don't blow again. Well, it came on and stayed on. It's the first time we've seen that. Yep, there's the low compressor. There's the high compressor. All right. So the fan is controlled by that board, I do believe, if I remember these old things right. I don't see a fan switch in here. That's part of the start assist little relay. Relay in there is, we pulled out. We pulled those wires out. And it pulled that sleeve. So we got to get that back in there so these don't rub and burn. But looks like the old beast is going to live. All right, we got the grommet back in up there, as you can see, to shield these wires from rubbing. And took a old ICP bracket and mounted that capacitor, and we're just using the 35. Make sure it's not near the metal. It's not. It's good. And we are ready to run. So, before I put this fan back on, we're going to back flush this coil and see if we can get it to where you can see some of the spines on the spine fin. We'll fire this old bad boy up. I'll use the coil jet. I've got the chemical flow turned all the way open. Plenty of New Bright, the blue new Calgon cleaner. That's what's in this side, and this is just water. And of course, y'all know how these work. It mixes it for you. And then you can turn that knob off down there and rinse it out. But I'm just going to rinse it out with a hose. But I use this because it'll shoot it through that spine fin, and we'll actually get the cleaner through to the dirty part with this pressure here. A little bit better than the old pump-up sprayers and stuff. Let me get both hands on it and I'll show it to you foamed up. Alright, it's starting to foam through. It's going to take a couple of coats and a couple of layers. And I think this is a 2-layer coil too. You can see it's got 2 layers of spine fin. So we're going to flush it a couple of times and see if we can get it looking good and then crank her up. This way, because I choose not to take the whole cabinet apart. And I know we're going to get a bunch of comments of how you do it right and I don't. But, you know, you see all this stuff coming out of it. It takes a few minutes to get it flushed out, but I'll show it to you when we're through. It'll probably take me a good 10-12 minutes to get this thing rinsed out, and we may have to foam it. We may have to do it more than once. All right, only had to foam it up twice, and but I have rinsed it for about 20 solid minutes. Get it where it was pretty clean. So we have flushed through it and through it and through it. So let's put it together and crank it up. Alright, before I fight with that big old side discharge weather guard top lid, we'll make sure this thing fires up. Comes. I'll get around here where I got a little bit more room, and we'll have a little bit of a delay on the low compressor, and then it'll run for a few minutes and then it'll cut off and go to the high compressor, because I went to low one. Nope, it went straight on into high. Must be because I've had the thermostat on for a few minutes. And I'll make sure we dry out this coil and start getting hot air up here, and then I'll put the lid back on it and we'll check the refrigerant and everything. But I tell you, this is one of those units that I have not touched in 19.5 years. It was manufactured in 6 of 2000. And we put it in a little bit after that, so it's not quite at 20 years, but it's real close. And the homeowner was glad to find out it just had some burned up wires and a puffed up capacitor. Other than that, I haven't found anything wrong, so let's give it a few minutes and see what we get. Oh, I remember that. Painting guy had done on his dining room wall there, of a waterfall and a deer head. So I guess oh, and it's got the body of the deer on it too. So I guess he must have killed that deer, little old buck. So let's take a look at this thermostat. Some of you might remember these. And this was the old XL premium line thermostat here. Still in place and still working now. It's 81 in here now. And I've put it down to 74, so it should be in the second stage. I wonder if the other thermostat is... Yeah, it's still got this old one. All right, let's go back out there and see if we've got hot air coming out of it yet. All right, it's running very well. And got it all back together. We've got to do the one over there. I know that coil is going to be equally as dirty. And it depends on the length of this video if I'll be able to combine them or not. We may have to make a separate video for that one, but it'll just be a cleaning. There's no problems with it. Now, that is another unit that we have also not touched in somewhere between 19 and 20 years. Tell you what, well, they made these things like tanks back then, as you can see. I was really happy to see that in the 18 S.E.E.R, both compressors were good, the fan motor's good, and the original capacitor ran for over 19 years. Tell you what, I'm impressed with the old stuff, and we've got quite a few years to go before the new stuff proves itself. It's much more efficient, much prettier, and much quieter, but let's see how many of them are still standing after 20 years. These are going to run a while. All right, let's go to the next one.